All right, well, let's move on to our next story, and I think I have to go backwards for this one. But over to you, Swinny.
Yes. Now, screw all that talk about retro, fancy handheld collection. Let's talk about a big, meaty, manly RPG for once. Arr. So, we actually finally got some news, some juicy news about Obsidian's new RPG, Avowed. So, for anybody who doesn't remember, Avowed was revealed back in June last year, and we haven't seen anything but the teaser trailer that they showed, which is all cinematics, which is playing in the video podcast right now. But uh, Jez Corden over at Windows Central and also of the Xbox Two podcast actually got to see some footage, and from everything that he's talked about, it sounds like the game is coming along really nicely, and some really cool tidbits that he's being able to share. Some of it is not confirmed, definitely, and like again, all of this is coming while it's coming from a reputable source. Windows Central has been very good in that in the past. Just still, obviously, this is a game in development. Still, any of these details could change. But the game is actually pretty deep into production already. But apparently, it's not like at a playable alpha stage yet. He said that it's likely using the same engine as the Outer Worlds, which is Unreal Engine 4. We don't know about the Outer Worlds 2 yet in that regards. And that Obsidian have about 125 people working on that game, and they have about 120 people working on the Outer Worlds 2. So pretty split there. They also have a small team working on what's the name? Is it Grounded? Whatever that that
Yeah, grounded.
yeah, Grounded. So they're also working on that game on the side. Now, to no one's surprise, he said that it really does look like their take on Skyrim, just like Outer Worlds was kind of like a take on Fallout. But Outer Worlds, interestingly, didn't feel like Fallout once I played it. So it's kind of like I think surface level, it probably looks that way. But I have a feeling Avowed is kind of probably going to feel different, just because it is based on the Pillars of Eternity world, and they're taking a lot of the elements like the spells and enemies and the lore and everything from that. So also Obsidian, I don't think he doesn't know the scale of the game if is going to match up to Skyrim, but he even kind of talked about the fact that it's probably going to be what Obsidian did with Outer Worlds, which is smaller in scale, but more like I guess more detailed and more narrative driven. Like the smaller you build the game world, the more you can tailor the narrative in a specific way, or at least build branching paths in a more realistic way. So it is set in the Living Lands region of Eroa. I think it's Eroa. Which is the world of Pillars of Eternity. So I've only played through the first Pillars of Eternity game. I haven't played through Deadfire. It was a really cool world, and I would love to see what it looks like in first person. But I didn't fall in love with Pillars of Eternity as a game itself. Honestly, I think it was a bit too dialogue heavy for me. So I think this is going to be more up my alley, where it's going to be much more. If it's kind of closer to Outer Worlds in that regard, then it's going to be much more my thing. It is going to be more class loadout based in Skyrim, which means Mike is going to hate it because it's going to probably limit people based more. It's going to be more traditional RPG style. Whereas if you're playing as a magic character, you're going to be more limited in that regard. You can't be a jack of all trades as much, is what he's insinuating.
Right.
And spells can impact the environment. So in the teaser trailer, they showed like a spell removing rubble. Apparently, that's actually a thing in the game that they've just obviously turned into a cutscene. So it's going to be more pretty. You're going to have more interactivity with the environment. If there's one thing Outer Worlds really suffered is that other than the NPCs and the environment, that it didn't feel like the world was pretty static. Like there wasn't much to move around. There was items to pick up, but it was pretty static. So I'm hoping that's what that means. It's going to feel more like a bit of a lived-in world. But yeah, the last point that he said is that he thinks it's a good chance that it's going to be shown off at E3, and likely going to be a 2023 release. So unlike when not BioWare, when Bethesda teased, Elder Scrolls 6, and then it's obviously a long way off this is actually deep in development, and we will likely see something at E3. So, really, really cool to go from no news at all to this is just great, and a lot of people are super pumped about this. And one cool thing as well is if anyone's interested in learning more about the world that the game is set in, the Avowed subreddit is really, really cool because there's already established lore from the two Pillars of Eternity games that people are actually already writing beginner's guides on the world. So if you're super keen, you like it, you can actually go and check out some of what the world's based on. So
Absolutely,
nice.
that looks really cool.
I think
Sounds
we're all
awesome.
keen on this game, actually. Like, even I'm keen on it. And, you know, about that kind of class-based stuff, that's kind of the way I naturally thought Skyrim would work. And it wasn't until I picked the wrong class and I started doing different things, the game started to evolve to my playstyle. And I'm like, oh, okay, I don't have to worry about this. So I probably just need to be a bit more mindful of that going forward, I guess.